sientas mi mujer una y otra vez. Tu piel es dulce como la miel y sabes que él no la merece. Hoy tengo que hacerte mi mujer y lo sé muy bien. Ven, vamos a acercarnos para ver cómo es. Esto de rozarnos piel con piel. Hoy quiero que te sientas mi mujer una y otra vez. Tu piel es dulce como la miel y sabes que él no la merece. Hoy tengo que hacerte mi mujer y lo sé muy bien.
The views, opinions, and representations expressed on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network and its website are those of the hosts, guests, and participants, and are not necessarily those of or endorsed by the network, its affiliated stations and broadcasts, the management, other hosts, or advertisers of the network. The shows found on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network can, but do not necessarily, promote any particular lifestyle, belief, religion, political affiliation, or other personal practice. These shows are for entertainment purposes only and are not intended to treat, diagnose, and or claim any cure of disease or condition or give any medical or legal advice. You are listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio Network, from our compound to you worldwide, with your host, Gary Anderson.
Well, good evening or morning, depending on your time zone. From the Pacific to Atlantic to worldwide, you're listening to me, Gary, on Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark. Tonight, we're going to be talking to our guest who's out in Europe. He's going to be talking about one of his books he wrote and maybe a few other books. He'll be on right after this.
You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com.
You're listening to my friend Gary Anderson on Night Dreams Talk Radio, the best in paranormal radio.
Well, thank you, John. Tonight, you might want to get yourself a nice cup of java or some hot cocoa. You know, find that easy chair to curl up on, maybe next to a fire, because we got a great guest calling all the way from Europe, talking about his books here tonight. John, are you there?
Yeah, hi, Gary. Thanks for having me on.
Well, hey, tell everybody about yourself.
Yes, my name is John Vespasian. I've been writing books about personal development already 14 years. And the reason for writing my books, which is not self-evident that people get down to writing because it takes so much work and it's so difficult to make money writing books. The reason for writing is sheer frustration. I mean, I find most books about personal development so unrealistic, so vague, so little based on reality, that I started to write 10 years ago the kind of books I wanted to read, I could not find. They are books based on history, based on facts, based on real people, trying to draw from history realistic advice, very practical, that we can use today in the 21st century.
Well, how old were you when you started writing these books, John?
I was already 40, and which is a bit late to start writing books. But I thought I have to do it. I cannot wait. And the first time I wrote a book, I took 4 weeks off. I thought, okay, I'm going to see if I can do it. Within 4 weeks, I wrote the first draft, and then it took me like 6 months to edit. And this is how I started 11 years ago.
Oh, wow. You know, that what I find, and I don't know how it is over in Europe, but here, you know, it's all of a sudden wants to be an author, and you got Amazon. So they'll crank out a book in a week or two, and they self-publish it, but they don't know how to promote themselves, and they wonder why their book sales don't go and why they don't sell. So, you know, I'm glad you contacted me because at least it'll get your, you know, over here, you know, the word out about your book.
Yes, I'd say that you have to spend 50% of the time in promotion. It's very unrealistic. It's the same for books. It's the same for anything. It's no difference. If you sell books or you sell cookies, you need a huge marketing effort. You have to be different from other books. And this is not self-evident because when people get down to writing, they want to be creative, they want to be self-absorbed, and you have to focus on the audience. So I learned little by little how to do promotion. And now I focus my promotion on basically on doing interviews around the world. But you have to learn how to do it. It's for someone who's writing, it's absolutely not self-evident that you have to focus on marketing.
Oh, yeah, because I know authors that would come on my show, and, they were scared to, go out and promote themselves. And then they sit there and wonder why nobody's buying their books. And you know what? Amazon is filled with great books, and a lot of them are fantastic. I got a whole studio full of authors, that wrote books. But if they don't know how to promote themselves, no one's going to know that, they wrote the book, and they're not going to sell. So I think you're right. You spend a great time writing the book and then going through and editing and re-editing. And then after it gets published, then you got to put on another set of shoes and then, go out and learn how to market what you just created. The same way as when I do my show.
Yeah, well, I would disagree in what you just said, different set of shoes. I think it has to be the same set of shoes. And I learned this through experience because the first book sold very badly. And then I started to write books that you can promote. So I think the design of the product, the design of the book has to be something that is catchy, that people will want to listen about, want to hear about, want to at least to take a look. And this has to come from the very beginning, from the product design. If you write something just for yourself, and it's a subject that nobody cares about, I don't think you will find many opportunities for promotion.
Oh, yeah. That's the trouble I run across with a lot of authors, that they write a book and, I hate to say it, sometimes they're into themselves too much, not thinking what, the readers would want. Now, why don't you tell everybody about your latest book you wrote? And by the way, I went on Facebook, or one of the things on the media here the other day, I saw a wonderful picture. Were you wearing that wig? And and if I'm wrong, I apologize. Was that your real hair in that picture with that beard and the hair? Or was
the story of the picture. Well, I use different pictures for promotion. But I want to maintain my privacy while I'm doing auto promotion, because one of the temptations today in 21st century that people just put everything about their private lives on the internet, and they make themselves extremely vulnerable. And in my books, one of the principles I really recommend for people to separate their business activities from their private life. And this is something that everybody should do. If you are in business, by God's sake, incorporate a company and separate it from your life. Don't put yourself at risk. And the same goes for your private life. I think people are a bit too foolish to put all their personal details, all their family pictures on internet. So I try to separate. I try to preach with example, separating my private life from my books, which is a product. So I sell books. I don't sell my private life. And I think this is what most people should do to protect themselves from intruders. Don't disclose on internet whatever media you are using. Try to keep your private life private. I think this is something that people should realize. You would regret it in 10 years, 20 years down the line if you're not a bit careful. Because you should not be spreading private information about yourself that one day you say, okay, why on earth I'm getting so many questions, so many intruders of my life. Try to keep your private life private. I think it's a very good piece of advice. I learned it from history, from going through hundreds of biographies. People who don't do that systematically regret it down the road.
Oh, yeah. And not just that. When a lot of people, like on Facebook, John, they put their whole, like you're saying, they put pictures of their whole family, right down to the dog, their house, their whole life. They tell their whole story. And the bad problem is that you're looking at somebody is going to steal your identity, and you're always risking that. You're risking about your bank account being zapped. Somebody's stealing your whole, everything and using your name. So you're right. You want to keep those two totally separate and don't put a lot. But you know what? That's what happens when people get on Facebook or some other type of media. They think they have to tell their whole life story on a daily basis.
Well, it is a temptation. It makes you famous, but you have to be careful. The title of my latest book is Undisrupted, how highly effective people deal with disruptions. And what I have done, like in the previous books, what I do every book is to go through hundreds of biographies, hundreds of stories in different centuries, and I look at how people deal with a specific problem, with a specific adversity in their lives, and I try to draw practical conclusions. The idea for this book, Undisrupted, I got it 3 years ago. I was reading the biography of an industrialist, an entrepreneur from the 19th century, a very famous man in Europe, Mamontov, who used to build railroads in the 19th century in Russia. He was a celebrity. He was very wealthy, very famous in Russia. And within a few years, he destroyed his life completely. I found the story very intriguing because he was highly sophisticated, highly educated, but he lost everything. And during the last 17 years of his life, he was living in complete misery, poverty. People even refused to talk to him. All his friends deserted him. He lived in complete loneliness. And I found the story very intriguing. How is it possible that people make these kind of mistakes? And I have gone through a lot of stories trying to draw the principles. But to answer this question is very difficult. So I came up with some ideas. We can talk about different stories, but this happens over and over and over again. I would see people doing very, very well. They seem to be on top of the world. Within a few years, you don't recognize them. They are destroyed financially, in their health, in their relationships. And what I've done is to come up with the principles of why people do that and how you can prevent it.
Well, how do people, they either run a business and they're doing good for so many years and all of a sudden the business starts failing, or what causes this?
There's one principle you find through all the stories, and this is one of the main ideas in the book. When we have to deal in life with sometimes some type of adversity, whether it's in your health, your business, your career, we tend to panic. Like happened, Mamontov was running a huge railroad. He got the idea he could do anything. He started a steel manufacturing company. He started to lose a huge amount of money. And then instead of just giving up the new enterprise, he started to improvise. And this is the pattern you find in all people who get into deep trouble. They start to improvise. The contrary principle, what really works, and we will go through the different stories, but what really works, and you see this systematically, is that when people are facing problems,